What if your Olympic dream was shattered by a single moment? But that moment also unlocked an even greater purpose. Meet Maureen Manley. Once one of the world's top cyclists, her vision faded mid-race during the Tour de France Femmes, leading to a crash, an MS diagnosis, and a life forever changed. But Mo didn't give up. She rewrote the script from steroids to biofeedback, from orange skin to a master's in integrated wellness. Mo's story is part grit, part grace, and all heart. Today, she's not just surviving MS, she's thriving and helping others do the same. This is a conversation you didn't know you needed. It's raw, it's inspiring, and it's real. Let's get into it.
Well, I'm excited. Not only do I have one of my best buddies sitting, quote, next to me virtually, but I have one of my longest, dearest friends on the show. And I'm so excited to reintroduce the world to one of America's best cyclists that's ever come out from North America. And she's now on our show. I've known her forever, but welcome, Mo Manley. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you guys.
Well,
great to be with you again here, Dr. Terry.
It's weird to hear you say Dr. Terry, but this is. I want the world to first know you were going way back into the 90s. You were one of not only USA's, but the world's best cyclists and multiple national championships. And you, I don't know what year it was as far as how many times they did, but you were at the Tour de France, the Femmes, and so let's go back to that race because I want to move forward from the past. But we have to establish how great you are, and during that race, you had an experience. I remember you calling me and telling me that I guess if I remember correctly, that the peloton turned right and you kind of turned left,
right.
And blurred vision, which led you off a cliff, and you had a crash.
Would you let her tell the story?
But I'm gonna let her, and that's how I discovered what you have now. So I want you to kind of tell a story before I get yelled at. I want you to tell the story.
He's elaborating on the story, so maybe we should turn it over to me.
There you go.
It wasn't a cliff. It often turns out to be a cliff when other people tell a story.
All right. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. The women's Tour de France was at the time run later than the men's race, and the women's tour is back. Thank goodness with the men's race. But back in 1991, I was racing in the women's Tour de France, and I was feeling some funky things. I thought I was feeling really fatigued. The women's Tour de France was after the World Championships. So I was the only female cyclist the American cyclist to be asked to race in two of the World Championships events, which is kind of rare, the team time trial and the road race. So everything was going great. I had done really good at the national championships. And so here I am at the women's Tour de France, and I'm feeling like this is like I'm in a slump. It's the end of the year. Maybe I'm just, overtired. So the race takes off, and the first stage is a mountain stage. And most of us have seen it on TV. You're racing up with the peloton. Peloton is a group of cyclists that are all racing together. And the more we climbed, the harder I pushed my body up the climb, up the mountain. My vision began to blur. And I'm thinking, I just need to stay with the lead riders. And so I'm focused on the wheel of one of the best cyclists in the world, trying to stay with the lead pack. And the more I pushed myself, the more my vision blurred, which was really strange. But as a world-class athlete, you feel things in your body and you just have to keep pushing. Mm-hmm. So I kept pushing. And by the time we reached the top of the mountain, my vision had blurred so severely, I lost my sight completely. And what I shared with you, Terry, when I called you is in a panic of what the heck's going on is what happened was the peloton turned left and I couldn't see the road. And so I just thought, just keep pedaling and pushing. And what happened is the road left me and I hit the gravel on the side of the road and felt my wheels slip out from underneath me. And I found myself crashing to the ground. And I had no idea what was happening at that time. I knew I just needed to get up and get back in the race. And so it took me a while to get back up, and some of the fans on the side of the road helped me. And I get back up, and what happened is, as I was getting up and slowing down, my body temperature was lowering. I didn't know this was what was happening. And I got my vision back. And so I got back on my bike and finished the race. And at the finish line, my coaches and teammates were waiting for me because I wasn't with them. And they asked me what happened, because I was one of the better climbers and riders on the US team at the time. And I just said, I can't, excuse me, there was a little flavorful word that came in there, and it starts with an F. I said, I can't see when I go hard. And that's all I could understand what was going on. And so, with the crash, what I didn't know at the time is that I rode my bike off Run Road to begin a journey on a new road. And that road would be a life with multiple sclerosis. And this was 34 years ago. And at that time, this journey with MS is, there weren't any medications, very much no known cause or cure or treatment. So it was quite a really trauma for me to be diagnosed with this at the height of my cycling career, where everything was going so well for me. So that's the Tour de France story.
When Dr. Terry shared that story with me, it was quite a jolt. And we have so many more things to ask you about your attitude, mood, and things like that. Just for the listening audience, multiple sclerosis, for those who can't relate to what that really is, think of any wire in your home, and that wire, if it starts to lose its encasing, its plastic casing, you would immediately replace it because it could cause a fire or short circuit or something like that. Your nervous system your immune system starts to attack that sheath around every single nerve in the body, and it starts to wear it down. And that involves spinal cord, brain, or the olfactory bulbs that feed vision. So that's why that was happening to you.
Right.
Which is shocking to me that would happen at such a peak moment in your life. From that, you had to pull out of the Tour de France stage. And one of the headlines that read, Manley's Olympic dream is dashed. Now, looking back now at that, would you rewrite that headline and capture what actually happened after that moment?
I don't know that I could rewrite it, because there's a lot of things I can't control. But my Olympic dream, what was interesting is when I was first diagnosed with the neurologists in Colorado and with my teammates and really good friends with me, I asked the doctor, the first things out of my mouth was, can I still race? And the doctor said, probably not. And I saw probably not was not no. And so
you say there's a chance.
Yeah, exactly. So you say there's a chance. And that's what I heard.
Nice.
Right. So in 1992, an Olympic year, I wasn't going to not continue to try to race, because there was so much unknown about MS at the time. It was just a really, really scary diagnosis because of the potential of what could happen to people. And for me, I'm like, well, there's that potential and there's this potential. Like, maybe it will be mild. And at that time, I was not going to give up without trying. So it did turn out that my Olympic dreams were dashed, but not without trying to race in 1992. But I told my teammates and my coaches that if I have problem with my vision or problems with, if I can't, generate the power, I'm out. And I did do a couple of races in 1992 2002, that Olympic year, and my vision had gotten better than it was at the Tour de France, but not good enough. And I knew what that line was going to be. So as gracefully as I could, I walked off the U.S. team during an Olympic year,
So
which sucked.
I'm sure, and I'm sure, Dr. Terry and I have always been exposed to season-ending injuries or career-ending injuries, and watching some pro athletes, they either just completely fail and fall apart. But you actually started a new journey, and what was that?
The journey was, there was a period of genuine devastation, of losing everything that I'd worked so hard for. I mean, really all my life, when you're athletic all your life, and then you find this lane that's totally fit for you. And I was loving what I was doing. But there came a time where, the MS really in a very short amount of time um, was pretty aggressive. And it was at that time where I felt like more of a victim of it. And being a victim and not taking control and fighting for something was very strange for me, and it didn't feel good. So there was a point in my life where, and I know Dr. Terry, I'm remembering that you were, you saw me during this time that was pretty rough. And I made this really, really powerful decision, and that was to live my life. At that time, it was wobbly legs and blurred vision. And because at one point, my vision blurred at rest. So I couldn't function as a sighted person. I was walking with a cane. And this was a year and a half into my diagnosis. And I said, cycling, I loved it. I had to let it go. And if when you have an open palm, you can receive. But if I was holding on to, I have to get cycling back, because believe me, I was trying to get cycling back. And then I had to do some, well, I had been doing a lot of soul searching. And I thought to myself, what is it about cycling that I love so much? And there was the freedom, the self-expression, pushing myself, knowing myself at deeper levels, the camaraderie, a team event. All these things are what I loved. These are aspects of my soul, my psyche. And I had to ask myself, could I still have these things? Could they express in other ways? Because that's who I am, not the cyclist. And the answer was yes, thank goodness. And so I thought, okay, what do you want to do? And I just needed to start investigating what it is that I wanted to do for myself. I was always had been radically curious about nutrition and anything that creates peak performance. So I needed to use all those things and apply them to myself and learn more about them. And so really peak performance, performance under pressure, what are those things that are going to help me live my best life? And my focus began to be not on getting my cycling back, but doing whatever I could without an outcome to be as happy and healthy as I possibly could be. And the journey began. And as I started to investigate, take classes, and learn more things, I eventually went to graduate school to get a master's degree in what I called integrated wellness. And that was really how best to use all of yourself, mind, body, and spirit, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. How do you work with everything to create the outcome that you want, and not just compartmentalize thinking, things like I just need to have a good attitude, or I just need to be smart or strong. It takes all of us to create the best from ourselves. And that was my inquiry in graduate school. And that's what I've been doing for over 20 years with my career, helping individuals and audiences as a speaker and as a consultant, just looking at how to bring out the best. And, first you need to know what it is you're shooting for. And sometimes we start like with clients, it's just starting with the basics, like I did, just saying, I want to be as healthy and happy as I can be. So what's in the way, or what do you need to learn to create that outcome for yourself?
Maureen, or Mo, you made important point. And the idea, first of all, it's always nice when people give this blanketed statement. Come on, you could do this, but you dissect it down, and I think that's so important to reveal some of those incremental moments, like the fact that you used a metaphor of holding on to the past, and then what was it that turned you on about cycling, which is something that people should ask them. What turned them on about surfing? What turned them on about football? What turned them on about? And they go through those stages of grief that everybody goes through, or loss. So
Right.
it's natural and normal. But to be able to find your direction, your true passion was really everything. Your coach had once called you a demon in the hills because you obviously fiercely attacked those mountains, which we don't have mountains here in South Florida. But anyway, speaking of which, the fact that you had that fearless competitor show up every day in your life, how do you use that competitor in what you're doing now, or basically how it started, how you moved forward and moved on?
Wow, that's a great question because she shows up every day.
Hey, all right.
Sometimes, and
Demon.
this is a big thing that I help a lot of clients with too, is I'm trying to think of a way to say it succinctly. That competitor for me now 34 years ago, I can't use her in the same way that I do now. I need to understand her because she's fierce. And that fierceness, as a person living with MS and thriving with MS, one of the reasons I can do this is because I know this girl, this fierce gal. And because what I learned along the way is the fierce competitor, if I use her the way I did before. So, for example, as a professional athlete, I would say not good enough and beat myself harder, and it worked. You can do better. Things need to be tamed now to work to get fitter and stronger because I'm back cycling and have been cycling now for 22 years. I have to be smarter about how I work with this fierceness to be really wanting to be better from how I was, last year, either as a professional, as a speaker, as a coach, as an athlete. And I have to go about it in a different way. One of which is a lot more compassion. And the other one is a lot more understanding of science, physiology, and how my body works and adapts to stress. Stress as, mental stress, and then also physical stress. Because train similar to other people, but I have to really listen to my body and be smart about how it is I go about things. So that's am I making sense? That was a big ramble.
No, not at all. But I want to ask, when you that intensity that you have, that attack
Mhm.
attitude, were you referring to how you modulate yourself and progress, or how you coach others?
Right, both.
Okay.
Both, because I coach others with what I've learned. And
Yeah.
also, it's not just from what I know, it's also science.
Yeah.
You just can't jump into any endeavor and be there overnight.
Yeah.
And there's a smart way to get there. And first you have to know yourself and where you are. And like some clients, early on and maybe a diagnosis, they are grieving and they're really sad and they're saying, well, I don't want to be sad. It's like, have you allowed yourself to grieve? Because
Yeah.
sometimes you just don't want to be sad. You want to get away from that because it's uncomfortable, but that's where you are right now. So how are you doing that? So it's just taking a lot of science and understanding of you know how we are mentally and emotionally, and not I think what I'm trying to say is not just using it would be the mental aspect of forcing things into being, because that's not using the totality of who we are. We have to understand ourselves emotionally as well. And so when you look at the emotion and you mentally you're wanting to do something, attack the hill. Attack for me, it's like this is something that I want to go after. I have to understand myself that's a mental level, right? Of something I want. Emotionally, how am I feeling about it? And then physically, how am I doing? How's my body? Is this really something that I can tackle? And then even spiritually, is it aligned with my values and what I really feel called to do? Because if it's not, it's not going to work out so good.
I think the core of understanding is of knowing what drives you is knowing what drives you from, whatever might have happened in the past. And everybody's got kind of a different story. I remember seeing guys that have season ending or career ending injuries. And one guy left such an impact on me. I just looked over at him while he was getting therapy in one of the training rooms. And the book he was reading was Why Me? Yeah, why me? But how did you use that passion to drive you to get to where you are today? And that's something that I think you have a gift in figuring out.
Thank you. Well, I want to throw in there because it was interesting. Even early in my diagnosis, people would say, "Do you ever ask why me?" And I didn't. And so the why me, I think what's important is that people ask the question, "How me?" Because the how is where I really come in. I come in like I like to say, I come in as the verb because there's lots of people that are going to tell you what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And, all the lists of how you should, or these are the things, to be resilient, these lists of things you should do. And, those are mental lists. These are the what's. And I come in with the hows. And that's the way you get things done.
That's beautiful. I like that.
Thank you.
So the intensity that brought you to cycling obviously was the same intensity you used to fix things that once you found out about the diagnosis. And I actually have a couple friends that I graduated with. And, at this age, we have our, reunions, and I see one of them struggling with MS, and I would love for her to listen to this. But from what I understand, 1 month after your doctor prescribed these steroids to you, then you heard about eating carrots were good for you. And now we know that too many carrots will turn your skin orange. Is that true?
I was orange.
Yes.
I was orange.
And then there's the biofeedback, and then the nutrition to boost your immune system. What have you learned from blending conventional medicine with alternative approaches over the years?
Oh boy, I wish I'm going to try to be succinct. For me, a lot of time, the whole carrot, it was a juicing therapy that I was doing at the time because I was going to fix this, right? If anybody could fix this disease, I could, I thought.
Yeah.
And so it was very much a fixing attitude and because of fear, right? So I wanted to fix it so I could go back. And what I learned after doing some crazy things and actually having them harm me, I said, I will never live out of desperation ever again. I've made this decision to live forward with this disease, with blurred vision, with walking with a cane. Like, I'm not living in fear. This is not going to work for me. And so what I learned with all the stuff that I was learning about nutrition is that how am I simply putting this information and this knowledge and this application to work for what it is that I'm wanting for myself, and not looking at the fear of having MS, but looking at it to fuel me forward. I think this was a big thing. What really helped me is not looking for an end result in like, I'm going to do this to fix it. I'm going to do this so I can get my cycling back. I'm going to do it for a kind of a bigger thing to be healthy and happy. And so I began more investigation in all these alternative stuff. And I had been working since Dr. Terry graduated. I've been working with him as a chiropractor. I knew that worked well for me. And I've never not sought chiropractic care. And some things I've tried haven't worked as well. So it's a lot of time when people are diagnosed with something or facing something, you hear a lot of stuff. And early on I was just doing everything. I hardly ate anything because I was following so many different diets. Like, you don't do this, have this, and but I had to find out what would work for me. and to ask myself, it's a continued question. Why are you doing this? And if it comes from, it's kind of this intuitive feel too. If it feels right, um, is this the direction I need to go, or want to go? Because I do my darndest to not work out of fixing or shoulds.
Yeah.
When I hear a fix in my mind, I know, like, this is for me, it's not the energy I want to have moving forward, because it's usually based out of fear.
Could you share what's worked for you? And please, listening audience, this is not medical advice. This is
Right.
just a thought process that it's gone on. So what has helped?
Nutrition for sure, chiropractic care for sure, and a variety of different sorts of chiropractic care, and acupuncture. I've done a lot of different kind of body works. I've done. One of the even working with I'm trying to think of the name, but it's spiritual healing, Reiki type
Reiki,
stuff.
yeah.
One of my mentors is a PhD biophysicist, is a spiritual healer. So I work with her a lot and studied a lot with her. And God, I'm just trying to think, like, what have I not done? But the main thing that I focus on is the body work and the nutrition. And there's things that I've done that have gotten me to a certain level, like certain supplements that I've taken that really kind of really address something for me, something that was maybe missing or really helped, and then they stopped working as well. And so it was like I was doing that, and then I advanced on to the next thing. I'm currently not doing acupuncture, but for a time it was awesome. I always think acupuncture is great. I just really don't have the time in my um in my life right now to do that, to add it. But if something came up for me that I know that acupuncture helped me with in my past, I have that in my arsenal to say, yeah, this works with that. Or this person, I worked with a program that addresses allergies with acupuncture. It was called the Bucapod allergy elimination technique. I did that for years. It helped. I don't do it anymore. So there's certain things that I felt that I've done that have taken me to the next level. And then, they don't work as well as they did. And I'm just grateful I found them. And, asking the heavens of, like, what's next? What else do I need to do? Certain nutritionists that I've worked with do different things, like uh, muscle testing to find imbalances and stuff like that, or variety of different things that really address me, just not, you need to take this because you have MS. There's some things for MS that really help. I mean, fish oil and vitamin D, there's certain things that are kind of global. But then there's, looking at what's a natural. I work with naturopaths, always have, do lots of blood work and to see if there's something missing. Because a lot of times when we have things, these diagnoses, we think it's all that. Sometimes it's not. There's something else going on in our bodies. And what is MS? Nobody knows. There's some reason my immune system thought the myelin in my brain and spinal cord, an optic nerve, thought it was foreign. So what do I do to address a funky immune system? And at 34 years into my diagnosis, I don't have the same condition that I did when I was younger. What I need to look at now and work with naturopaths and I do my own research as well, is uh, looking at the zombie cells, right? So Senolytics, a lot of things that you guys do with longevity and working with people with longevity. It's like, what's going on there where damage in my spine, brain and spinal cord, I need to look at. It's not as inflammatory anymore. I need to protect those lesions. And so there's things called microglial that think damage needs to be cleaned up, and it actually makes it worse. So what can I take to address it's called microglial activation. So that's more of my inquiry now. So my point in sharing this is to show that over time, how I work with my body and what it needs, and what needs addressing, because a lot it changes. I'll finish my sentence. It changes. So I work a lot with newly diagnosed people, and their condition is hotter than mine. Their immune system is more activated than mine is as a older woman than they are with MS. So did that make sense?
Oh,
Am I making sense?
Yes.
And what for the listening audience, a year and a half ago into her diagnosis, she was walking very unsteadily with a cane, and you were even told that you'd probably be in the wheelchair within a couple of years, and now you're walk very steady. You don't have a cane. You're not in a wheelchair. You're on your bike. You've even done races again, and you've defied everything that anybody shot at you. So when you see a new patient who looks at you as like this enigma, almost like, well, do I have this? How do you address that new patient? Because you went back and you got your degree in integrative science. You even got really into iridology of looking at people's eyes and figuring out how that works. And how do you take what you navigate both as a patient and as an educator? What's your first conversation with somebody that newly diagnosed and to give them hope and give them at least going in the right direction that you did not have? You didn't have a roadmap. You figured out the roadmap now. So what kind of roadmap do you bring out to this new person who's scared to death?
Yeah, great question, Terry. The first thing I do is validate them where they are, because it's a human need, not a want, to be validated for what's going on. Because so often people they have this diagnosis, they're scared to death, or have this crazy symptoms going on, and everyone's telling them what they need to do.
Yeah. Because
they care, and there's a lot of shoulds coming at them. And so with me, this is what, right? Don't should on people.
Should, right? It's a way
because I know that I was told to have a good attitude and, be positive. And it's like, you know what's going on with me here? So validate them for where they are and work with them where they are. If they're really in a place of grieving, we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to say that that's not all you do. And if you find yourself only doing that, we'll talk because that's not okay. And, I would point them to someone else, because I'm really good with that. But if there's, depression or something like that. So anyways, I don't want to go down that. So we'll talk about that, because the validation is, and it's amazing how much they feel like, wow, you're telling me that what I'm feeling is okay to feel. Yes. And that's the thing. Yes. And we're also going to work on creating the life that you want. Let's look at, and depending where they are, it could be this, an exercise around what are the things that you loved about, the life that they feel like they lost, and how can we work at creating something exciting. And that's the thing, exciting to move into. But it's hard to move into something exciting if they're newly diagnosed, because there's too much going on in their head. There's too much to solve. Like there were no treatments for MS when I was diagnosed, and now I lost count. There's like 16 or something. And there's a lot to have to figure out. And, there's so much uncertainty that they're dealing with. And uncertainty is it's hard when you're dealing with a lot of unsolved things to look to build a life forward. And sometimes it's just that, acknowledging that you will, and letting them know you will get past this. Right now, you need to focus on this part. And after that, well, like if people have had the disease for a while, what we need to untangle is what's in the way, what thoughts, beliefs, expectations are in the way of you living forward and creating more of what it is that they want for themselves. And sometimes it's identifying it, because if you don't know and you're afraid of moving forward, because even moving forward is uncertainty, and uncertainty is scary. And so sometimes by default, people get more into a victim mentality because the uncertainty and the fear is too big. And so when we know what those things are, we can break them down, but we got to shed some light on it. And when you know what those thoughts, beliefs, and fears are that might be getting in the way, you don't just jump in, you break them down, because psychology will tell us that you can only move at the level that you believe you can achieve at. So what are those? So what are the beliefs, and can you do this? And I do my darndest to make success loves success, right? And you can build momentum on that. So simple, doable exercises for people to really feel like, well, okay, I'm moving. And then what happens over time is amazing. It's amazing for me to witness what some of my clients are up to now from where we started.
Well, you're one of my lifelong favorite human beings on the planet, and you were one of the biggest gifts working with you as an athlete. And for the listening audience, we all knew on race day not to talk to Mo. She was the most intense human being on the planet, and she would just eat you up, and you just didn't talk to her on race day. However, after the race, she was one of the funniest people and had the best sense of humor. She was like this bipolar human being that was like intense and funny. Looking back on your journey, all this, is there anything that stands out that was just downright funny in hindsight about this diagnosis?
Oh, funny. Oh my gosh. It's, it takes so long to be able to laugh at something. What's interesting, Terry, is how because I'm still the same way, I can be really intense and then on the other side, just, laughing about it. So, I can only look back and say how I don't know if it's laughing, but just see where I've come and from where I was, and so uncertain and so really fearful. And just like it would be more of a smile to say, look where you come, and you were so frightened that you wouldn't be able to make it. And I can smile at that.
So when MS would throw you a curveball, because you'd be like, oh, I'm on the right track, and then boom, it would throw you a curveball. How would you laugh at yourself to get yourself out of that chaos to get you back on track?
I would, when I get too serious, is to like, there she is. And you can do this and stress yourself out, or you can do what you can do. You always get out of it. And, to laugh at that aspect of myself that might be scared or think that I have to have things certain ways, because it's not how it works. And I just know that life is not like that. When I was younger, more naive, I thought it was. And there's just needs to be calm down, assess, and look at, the quivers that you have in my bag to shoot from. And there's so many. I have so many tools, but if I'm not acknowledging them, it's laughable, but also sad. if I spend any time, any amount of time, thinking that I don't have any kind of control over my life.
I remember we always, Spencer and I have always, if you tell an athlete to do 10 push-ups, they do 100. And I remember one time when you were doing the carrot thing and I showed up and you were like bright orange. I'm like, what the hell were you thinking? And you're like, well, he said to drink a couple, blend carrot. I go, yeah, not the entire crop.
No, it was the crop. It was the crop. I can't tell you. I have bags of carrots weekly.
It was and you look like an Oompa Loompa. You were like bright orange.
Yes. And so, yes, we're laughing at it now, but at that
Right,
time it was is desperation to fix it. Like somebody
right.
said I could if I follow this therapy, it'd be better. And I would do anything. If someone said stand on your head for a week, I'd do it if I could get my life back. And it's like, and that's where even even today in the language, the way people language things, like the fear part of it is I want my life back. And it's like, well, what aspects of back? Because going backwards in time isn't really a thing. So we're living forward always. The clock is ticking. So what is it about back? Because I'm clear about when people say I want my life back, and let's get clear about what those are. And yeah, and it is in hindsight funny about being a orange Oompa Loompa. That was a lot of carrots. I was juicing them. I wasn't eating them.
Oh,
And sprouting everything. And, the first, when I went to a training camp, the U.S. National team training camp, and I remember, it's just, this story just popped in my head. So I was juicing, I brought my carrots in my juicer, and I was also sprouting everything. And I remember Lance Armstrong laughing at me. So, and then his life moves forward and he gets cancer and he's doing all these, alternative, I don't know how much juicing he was, but he was focusing on that kind of stuff. I'm like, see, like do what you can for yourself.
yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
love
so
that.
funny.
So yeah, we've had podcasts where we've had people that come back from lost limbs and being shot at, and I mean near death experiences, almost suicides, and not actually following through. So hearing your story, but yet it's just another challenge, but being able to decipher how you overcome and create humor. But I also want you to comment on one of your life's and most people's life's toughest challenges. One of the things that you are probably most proud of, and you think I'm going to be talking about cycling, but I want to ask you about your son and how you facilitated his growth, and that grit and discipline that you used from elite cycling. Did it help? Was it sometimes it can backfire when you try to
Yeah.
put that on your son. Share those moments with us.
Oh, thank you. When you started saying before you even said son, it's like my greatest accomplishment, my greatest joy is him.
Aw.
And he's 28 now. And what's beautiful, and I'm blessed with such a kind. See, I wasn't going to cry about MS, but I'll cry about my son. I'm so proud of him. Like, I am blessed because he tells me what I mean to him. And he'll say, without you, mom. And I would, like, you taught me, you showed me. And he'd say, like, the company he was working for got bought out, and so he was unemployed for just a little bit because he got a job yesterday. And during that time, he reflected a lot about what I've shown him, what I've taught him. And I'm like, really? I didn't know that. And we don't, as parents, we don't always get to know everything. And I'm blessed that he shares these things with me. And for me and my journey with him too, because nobody's a perfect parent. When he was younger, I'd be a little bit more, this is what you need to do, and I was a single mom too. So it was like, I got to do all this, um, teaching, but then, just the compassion and the care and the love and the understanding that I learned to give myself, I could then give someone else. Because if we can't give it to ourselves, it's kind of impossible to genuinely give it away. So, so has he, yeah, I think, in grade school, especially with speaking, because he's a really good speaker and he's an actor. that I would be really on top of him about stuff like that. And it's like, some of this stuff just needs to be organic. And when I got out of the way with certain things, he could shine because I didn't tell him how to be an actor. And he did a great job. I mean, he does sales because he's such a people person. So anyway, so just being there for him and supporting him is been a huge thing. And teaching him to fight for what he wants. I think that's the biggest thing. That's patience, things don't happen overnight, and be patient with yourself. And whenever it's always hardest when it's new, and that you will do it, you'll get there. And now, we had that talk yesterday with his new position, and he had to learn those things himself in his first position about, execution and what it takes to build, he's in sales. So, just, boy, uh, patience is a big thing, and continuing to work hard on the goals that you want to attain. So there's a synopsis for you. It's
Thank
like
you.
how to talk about love. I don't know.
No, that's great. You led by example rather than preaching.
Right.
And I think that's sometimes the
I
most
think so.
important
I hope
thing
so.
as a parent. Yeah, because you know what? They watch you.
hmm
They watch you closely. And just the fact
I
that you
agree.
almost got choked up. I could get choked up just as well because I love my kids. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for
That's-
asking. That's like,
oh,
this is
you're
my
welcome.
favorite.
You're welcome. Yeah. So I would like to ask you for some insight and maybe some encouragement that you would like to share, from your journey with people that may be listening or that know somebody who's at the beginning of their journey or still having a difficult time, well into their journey. You've been involved in all these other programs like MS Fitness Challenge and where you encourage people, holistically, self-empowering. Tell us some things that you would share with someone in those predicaments.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I'll try to be succinct here. I think in the beginning of a diagnosis, give yourself the understanding that this is new and that you're only capable of dealing with so much at once. And so if you're sad, you're confused, name it. I'm sad and I'm confused. And right now I need to deal with this. And sometimes people are newly diagnosed and they still need to work and all that kind of stuff. So just give it to yourself how much stuff you're juggling, because I hear a lot of I should, I need to, or whatever, but you are where you are, feel what you feel, and then also get clear about what's important in your life, because a lot of times with life challenges like this, it is important to get really clear about what's important, because you may not have the energy and the bandwidth to do everything. And what we can find out is a lot of the everythings are the shoulds that we really don't want to be doing anyways, but we don't want to say no. Are, so just getting clear about things that are kind of a time suck, an energy suck, and always come back throughout the journey, come back to kindness, because what can happen so often is our little brains are telling us what we should be doing, and we think if we clobber ourselves more, we're going to get ourselves there. But when you're motivating yourself with more negative things, you won't want to move into uncertainty, because the more uncertainty you're moving into, the more you're clobbering yourself, and you don't even know what's going on. You better, you have to, you should, all that kind of stuff. Instead of motivating yourself with I wants a carrot. I should, or I need to is more of a clobber, and you don't want to be clobbered. And so that can be one of the roadblocks for moving forward, either when you're newly diagnosed or newly dealing with something, or along the journey. Because if you're not clear about what it is you want, and this is what my term is, and when I work with people, like I want them to have the analogy they want. For me, fighting for is a good analogy instead of fighting against. So fighting for is a want and it's a carrot. So being clear about what those things are, because people can get lost in the a default of victim mentality anywhere in life when you feel like things are just happening to you, that you don't have any control. As long as we have choice, we have control, not over everything. I mean, the thing is, so we're victimized, things happen, but we don't have to take the stance of being a victim. But we don't need to deny being victimized. So making the choices, and always know you have a choice. And sometimes we have to flex a lot of courage at things, and just to know wherever you are and you're not happy, where's the anxiety coming from? A lot of the anxiety can come from wanting to feel safe, wanting to feel certain, and wanting to have answers to things. And you have to realize you might not feel safe and certain and have the answers to move forward. You don't have to jump. You just have to do something that will pull you in the direction that you want. And then you take the next step. And then you can continue to create this activation, which gives you the confidence that you are capable to move and to create and to have success and to build success while having some significant challenges in your life. That's a nutshell.
I believe that a good metaphor for someone at home listening or watching is that you want to determine, are you the overweight person that puts a picture of a fat person on your refrigerator, or a skinny, svelte looking person, because that will allow you to realize whether you're motivated by an incentive or motivated by away from pain. And I think that a lot of people need to determine what drives them.
Right.
Are you that person that you're given a report to do over the summer? Do you wait till that last couple days beforehand, or do you do it in the very beginning? And now we are entering what I think is going to be a very fun stage of our podcast, and that is our rapid fire questions. And it will require you to think kind of quick on your feet and briefly, but it's also fun and inspiring. Are you ready for question of number 1 of 5?
Yes, I think.
All right.
Do I have a choice?
No. We're gonna test that mildly sheath firing.
Yeah.
Remember, there's lesions in here. See, you're making excuses already. Yeah, bring it.
No mercy for Mo. Ready?
No mercy for Mo.
Question number 1. I was surprised to learn that you once wanted to be a forest ranger.
Oh, yes.
Tell us the truth. Was it Yogi Bear and that cartoon, or another reason?
It's my love of the outdoors and the national parks. I absolutely loved I still do. And wanted to be a forest ranger. I actually wanted to be a rescue ranger. I wanted to be one of those people that went in there and search and rescue, that kind of stuff, and being out there and immersed in the mountains. Yes. There's still a part of me that wants to do that.
There's your alternative to cycling. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. What is the biggest myth that comes with the diagnosis of MS that still drives you a little crazy?
Yes. The biggest myth is it's this. Well, typically it's this chronic progressive disease. And it is chronic, but we can work at having it not be progressive. And so to see it as a death sentence, which everybody was when I was first diagnosed, and I was like, I was so angry about, the newspapers and magazines just seeing me as this awful case. And I knew in my soul that that's not the case for me. And so it's not, it is an awful condition, but there are things that you can do. See, I get fired up about it. So you ask me what bothers me.
That's good.
There are things that you can do to benefit and promote your health while living with MS.
Very good. Question number 3. Now, we've been clear that you raised your son as a solo parent, but now you're married to an amazing man by the name of Paul.
Yes.
I hope he listens to this podcast. What was the hardest yet most rewarding thing about getting married later in life?
Oh, hardest. The thing is, I had been single for so long. I thought, I'm so independent. How am I going to do this? How am I going to live with another person? Right. And the rewarding part was to say, I love this man and I want to do this. And I'm going to have to live into the uncertainty of it. And I have found that I like being with him more than I like being alone. We're great together.
That's great.
And we mesh together. He can be in the house. I mean, we've both worked from home. We're together a lot. And I thought, I didn't know that there was anybody on the planet I could spend so much time with. So, so later in life, I think that's what's different is that we met, well, we've known each other for a long time, but because we were friends for like, I don't know, 17 years. And but later in life, you have more things kind of sorted out. You're not, sorting it out as you grow older, I guess. So
Yeah.
we mesh now. So I was concerned about that, and I knew that I just needed to jump in and we'd work it out. But there hasn't been a lot to work out. I mean, certainly lots of conversations about things, but it surprised the heck out of me how radically unindependent I am.
That's great. Dr. Terry, I'm going to take a clip of question number 3 and send it to my current girlfriend, Karen, because that is the same attitude and feelings that she had.
Aw,
She's been independent for a long time.
yeah.
Question number 4. What is your favorite go-to movie that will always make you laugh?
Always make me laugh. My favorite one that always makes me laugh. Oh, you got me on that one because you had me at favorite. So I'm just going to stick with favorite because it makes me smile, whether it makes me laugh. I'm sorry, I know you want a funny one, but my favorite, which might surprise you, is The Sound of Music.
The
It
Hills
is.
Were Alive.
Yeah, I know the hills are alive. And there is something when you look into it about that woman, that independent nun, and being out, just being an oddball.
Yeah.
She wasn't, she didn't beat to the sound of anybody's drum but her own. And I always have admired her deeply.
Oh.
And the whole story. See, I'm going to get all.
No, I love it.
And it makes me smile, and sometimes it makes me laugh, and especially if you heard me sing along, that would be funny.
Oh, I'm so
That's great.
tempted, but
I'm sure you sound exactly like Julie Andrews when you sing.
Nothing like it.
Unless you're in your car and the volume's turned way up, right?
Yep.
Right. Or in the shower,
Have you heard her sing, Dr. Terry?
No.
No, okay.
Hey, you've watched Sound of Music.
Well, no,
I meant.
I heard. You know what? I probably have
me sing.
You-
No, he
no.
would not hear me sing.
Yeah, actually, I may have back in the cycling days. All the girls would get together and they would start singing. That was always the oddball out. So yeah. Probably.
That's true. I'll sing in a group. I will sing in a group.
There you go.
Last and final question, Mo. It's about the word greatness and what your definition of that word means to you.
The first thing that popped in my head is being the best that you can possibly be. And in order to do that, you do need to face fears, and you do need to move into uncertainty, and you do need to go after things. So greatness, sometimes we see people that, we see a great or achieve things, and we don't always see what goes into that, and just the courage that's there is huge. Everyone has to fight obstacles and beliefs and fears and all that kind of stuff. So greatness is, for me, about tackling the things that keep you from your potential, and just being as good as you can be by following. The biggest thing is following your North Star, what it is that success and greatness means to you, and then how do you live that?
Mm-hmm.
The how
Maureen?
is, you got to answer those questions.
Yeah. Maureen Manley, I have to say that your whole story is so unique and inspiring, and it appears that your mission today is to assist in helping others solve their confusion and paradox and bringing them up. And I really love to hear that stuff. So if you have any final words to say, this is your stage.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, that sums it up. And I'm happy to come into the Verb for, the people that and the organizations that want the understanding of just exactly how do you do this. So I appreciate your reflections, and I'm happy to be following my North Star.
Oh, it's great. Fantastic.
Love you, girl. So thank you so much for hanging out with us for this hour, and you're one of my favorite humans on a planet. So love seeing you as always, and give my love to Paul, and thank you for everything you do for everybody out there.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you guys too for doing this stuff. It's so great to be giving this information out to people.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Cracking Backs podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Cracking Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.